So, should we bring in the closer?
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. It's episode at number 68. We're one off the funny number.
Let's go.
Let's go. As always, I am Dave Spurd. I am going to be hosting this wonderful baseball podcast where we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, along with my magnanimous co-host, Jake Crumpler, of Crumpler Baseball fame and Pitcher List.
Making up words now.
Magnanimous is a real word. Look it up. You're an English major.
I'm joking. I know. Yes, we are back.
Yeah, we are back to talk baseball because it sucks, but like the trade deadline is like one of the funniest, one of the funnest things to talk about.
It's like, what's funny about it?
There's nothing funny about it because my team's going to be a bum. But it's one of the funnest things to talk about for baseball, even though it's like, okay, a lot of these guys' lives are like very much being thrown in flux. Move in the middle of the season, go figure it out, idiot. You're playing for a new team now. But before we even get to that, as always, we talk hot weeks here, and pretty good few hot weeks since the July 12th date. Josh Naylor has been the hottest hitter in baseball. He's hitting 400, like 455 on base percentage, slugging 1.150, 6 runs, and 4 of those are coming across from home runs, 11 RBIs, and a steal thrown in there for a guy that doesn't get very many of those, and 0.6 F4 on the season for one of the many Nailers that exist in the baseball sphere.
Yeah, I mean, this one sort of pisses me off because I drafted him in our fantasy league, and I dropped him pretty early because his first month was pretty terrible. In April, he batted .212 with a 63 WRC plus and just 3 home runs. And I was like, oh man, this guy's just a fluke. He's not great against lefties. Since then, since the start of May, Josh Naylor has been incredible. He's batting .348 with a 162 WRC plus and 12 home runs, 4 stolen bases. That's very good production. He's really an incredible hitter. And I didn't know if last year was just like he was sort of fluky because he's a lefty. You know, you get that platoon split that reduces your plate appearances and your opportunities. And I don't know if he was just a guy that had like those big moments, the big clutch moments, and if that was sort of changing my perception of him. But you know, I was right, and now I'm pissed because my brother has him and my brother's first in our league, and so that sort of is a bigger slap in the face for me. He's having the best year of his career, and it's pretty awesome to see. He's a player that I really enjoy. He's already set a career high in F4. He's at 2 right now, but recently he's been going even more off with a bigger power, 4 home runs. That's a quarter of the home runs that he's had on the year he's had in just the past week, which is less than a week. I think it's been like 5 days since we got back from the All-Star break. But yeah, Josh Naylor's having an incredible season, and yeah, it's another one of those where last year, this is sort of how I felt with Judge, where it was like, oh yeah, I want to root for this, but I passed on him in the draft and took like Brian Reynolds or something. It did not pay off. So I'm sort of in that same mode where, oh yeah, I want to see this guy do well and have a great season, but also it makes me upset.
Definitely. Naylor's been a big part of the Guardians sort of trying to right the ship because they were falling a little bit in the central standings because that division is terrible. They're still like, 2 games out? I think they're 47 and 49 to the Twins, 49 and 47. So, I mean, like, there's a strong chance they could buy at the deadline. We're going to talk about that later. But Josh Naylor's been a big piece of their offense, which has been up and down. But if he's going to get hot, maybe the rest of the team will follow suit because he has been scorching hot. He's hitting like 362 in his last like 30 games or something. And it's tough to call this like a hot streak because he's just been flat out good. He's been good since May, like you said, which is good to see because I really like Naylor. I know you do too. The energy he brings is like awesome. Like he's one of the guys that I just really like watching play baseball because he's always hyped up. The guy's really sick to watch play baseball. And then our other hot week is going to be dominated by Nick Pivetta of the Boston Red Sox against Oakland on the 17th, which was 2 days ago. He went 6 innings pitched in relief, 0 hits, 0 earned, 2 walks, and 13 strikeouts. He generated 18 whiffs, which is good for 38% call strikes plus whiffs percentage, which is very, very good. Nick Pivetta, pretty bad starter. He has been absolutely nails as a reliever, specifically as a bulk reliever. and he's always kind of had this stuff. I don't know. I'm sure you have more advanced stats to talk about for Pivetta than I do off the top of my head. But Pavetta's always been kind of like a 2-pitch guy. He's got like the weird. It's sort of like a slurve, I'm pretty sure they call it a slider, but it's got like slurve movement. And then he has the fastball, which is still like a mid-90s fastball, but he's been so much better as a reliever than as a starter, and it's just weird. But it's good to see for the Red Sox, who are trying to avoid the basement of the AL East and continue their playoff chance.
Yeah, I never understand how anybody can hit his curveball. He does have a slider as well, but his curveball is like 12-6. It's like straight up and down. And that one I always watch whenever I see him pitch. I'm like, how do people hit that? It's coming in the mid 70s and just comes out of nowhere when he's usually throwing his fastball in the mid 90s. But yeah, this transition to the bullpen has been super successful. When he was starting earlier this year through the middle of May, he had 8 starts. He had a 6.30 ERA, not great. And last year we saw some glimpses of what he could be as a starter, but it really never worked out. They moved him to the bullpen. He's had some shorter outings where he just worked an inning or got a couple of outs, but they've been able to limit his workload. But then also they do use him as a bulk reliever, and that's where we've seen him have the most success. Since becoming a reliever on May 21st, the guy has tossed 35 innings. He's got a 2.31 ERA that comes with 52 strikeouts to 14 walks. Let's see what that strikeout rate is. That's a 38% strikeout rate. That's he's pitching very, very well. And this one outing on, I don't know what day of the week that was, Monday, was amazing. That 13 strikeouts he had out of the bullpen set a franchise record for most strikeouts in relief, and he didn't allow any hits. Of course, there's the caveat of he was facing the A's, who continue to become a weaker team as the season goes on, and as we'll talk about later. But yeah, he was really great in this one, racking up the whiffs, racking up the called strikes, and his four-seamer was doing a lot of work here. It went for 37% CSW, but that slider went for 42% CSW. So that was his biggest whiff pitch, 8 whiffs there, and the curveball was sort of just added on. So he's just a 3-pitch pitcher out of the bullpen, and he's having a lot of success. I don't know what it is about having an opener. I don't know if that's a mental thing or if it's a mental thing for the offense of the opposing team, where they just get used to a pitcher early on and then they have to switch it up, and then it allows a guy to sort of catch a team off guard and dominate for a long time. But yeah, incredible start, incredible relief appearance from Pivetta. And yeah, I don't know. I want him to succeed. I don't know why I wouldn't, but it's hard to tell if this is something that's going to stick. Of course, it's stuck for an extended period out of the bullpen, and he's definitely been a lot better as a reliever than he has been as a starter. But it's I don't know. It's sort of weird how just having an opener can make such a huge difference.
Definitely. You talked about his stats in those 35 innings. He's also going along with like a 2.7 FIP. So it's still fitting. Like he's got like a 2.31 ERA is what you said. And he's got a 2.71 FIP. So it sort of falls in line with that. The whip has also dropped astronomically. It's sub 1.83. And then he's got like a 1.2 like batting average against. So yeah, it's always weird to me when guys like this really, really struggle like awfully as a starter and then work as a bulk reliever, because it's still sort of the same thing. Like you said, I don't know what the deal with the opener is, whether it's the psychological aspect or whatever, or just sort of taking a little bit of the load off of whatever bulk reliever you're going to use. But Pivetta's really flourished in that role and in like a multiple inning relief, not just following an opener, just sort of coming in for 3 innings. He's been really, really good in that span as well. So it's good to see for a guy that's sort of been up and down while the stuff's like always been there, finding out a role and really carving out a niche to be successful long-term, hopefully, for the Red Sox. Since we've talked about our hot weeks, it's only right to talk about our players of the week, since we always do that as well. In the AL, it's going to be the Houston Astros, Chas McCormick. And in the NL, it's going to be CJ Abrams of the Washington Nationals, who's quietly, after like the pretty bad start that everyone saw, he had a couple errors on opening day, really wasn't hitting. CJ Abrams has really turned it around too. And Chas McCormick feels like one of the ones that almost gets no shine, but he's been very, very good, along with Corey Julks with the Astros this season. Sort of the unsung heroes carrying freight near the middle to the back of that lineup. but Chas McCormick has been really good as well.
Yeah, McCormick definitely was not getting a lot of playing time earlier on when Yordan Alvarez and everybody were still uninjured. So he was having to split time with Jake Myers and Corey Julks, as you mentioned, in the outfield. But now that he's been given full run in the outfield and center field most of the time, he's been going off. Since June 30th, he's batting .405. He's got 4 home runs. This part of this Player of the Week includes some of the stuff that he did in the last few days. He had back-to-back days where he combined for 3 home runs. He scored 6 times and knocked in 5 runs. Those were huge days in terms of fantasy as well. If you go look at his fantasy page on in our league, I think he had like 19 points, 14 points or something on back-to-back days. It was pretty wild. He was going absolutely off. And for the year, I mean, this hot stretch of couple weeks has really pushed up his numbers. The defense is pretty solid, but the offense is really been there. He's batting .280. He's got a 146 WRC plus with 11 home runs and 9 steals. 146 that's all-star level. That's like beyond all-star level. That's really good. And it's just because he's only played 55 games this year that we're not like, oh, wow, look at the year Chas McCormick is having, because he doesn't have those counting stats yet. But on a rate basis, Chas McCormick's having an incredible year, and it's really going unsung up until he got this Player of the Week award. But yeah, Chas McCormick seems to be legit. I mean, you just got to believe the Astros are going to get the most out of their players. They're like the Rays, the Dodgers, the Giants. They just they have their own cheating factory, and Chas McCormick has been through there a number of times and has come out better each year.
Definitely. He's already sort of etched his name into Houston Astros lore anyway with the Game 5 catch in the World Series last year.
Right. That was crazy. I forgot.
Yeah, one of the best catches I've seen in the postseason.
Live too. Yeah.
He's also coming into the day. I don't have the updated stats obviously because there's still games going on, but coming into the day, he's actually 3rd in all of baseball just in the month of July in OPS with a minimum of 35 at-bat qualifier, right behind Francisco Alvarez, who's been going off in his own right, and Manny Machado. So that's pretty high honors. He's got like a 1.3 OPS just in July, which is ridiculous. And he's been hitting his way into the lineup. I think he's up to like 4th in the team for home runs or something like that. And I know they haven't had Yordan. So I mean, I think he's still up there. He's got like 17, but he's like 4th for home runs, and I think he's 5th for like RBI or something like that. Like he's doing well considering that he's been given limited opportunities, but he's made the most of those opportunities, and it's sort of going to be hard to take him out of the lineup now. They've basically been like, they have this dilemma now where they have guys that are really producing like Corey Julks and Chas McCormick, and guys that they're paying like Michael Brantley, who's just kind of sitting on the bench, or he's going to have to DH. Like you're not going to get at bats anymore because these guys are just better, and he's really good. I know there's been a lot of talk. We'll talk about trade deadline and some of the big names of like maybe they trade for a center fielder, but Chas McCormick's pretty good and he plays center. So I don't really know. Tough to say there, but Chas McCormick's been really good. And then CJ Abrams in the NL on a Washington Nationals team that is not really getting a lot of media attention, obviously, because they're not a very good baseball team. But CJ Abrams has been really good.
Recently,
not the full season. He was very bad to start off, but he's been pretty good in like this most recent stretch. And hopefully this can be a microcosm of what he might be in the future for the Nationals, because he was one of the big pieces in the Soto trade, of course.
Yeah, he's definitely been underwhelming. He's still really young. He's still 22 this year, but since the start of July, he's batting .353. He's got a home run. He's got 8 stolen bases. So he's definitely showing off the skills that he's got at the plate. They haven't really bore out for the whole year, 91 WRC plus on the year, but he's definitely picked it up recently, and that's cool to see. Like you said, this is one of the biggest members of that trade from the Juan Soto deal. So this is going to be a guy that Nationals fans are really counting on, and I think in a couple of years, he's got to be like one of the star players on the team. If not, Nationals got a lot of guys coming up through that system. Most of them are outfielders. But if Abrams doesn't prove that, I'm an above average major league player, so far 0.8 FWAR, not great, 91 WRC plus, like I said, not a great hitter. And as you mentioned, he had a lot of errors earlier on. Those haven't really slowed down. He's tied for the major league lead. He's leading the National League with 14 arrows right now. He's tied with Kike Hernandez. He's not a good fielder. He's playing a premium position at shortstop. But like I said, still 22 years old. He's only played 176 games in his major league career. He's got tons of time, tons of room to grow. but it's cool to see that he can have these stretches. He does have the ability to show that he can hit the ball well. He can have success at the major league level. He does have the skills to stick when everything is going well. And while he's really fast, I love to see everything else come through. But we may have to wait until he's like 25, which is 3 years from now.
Definitely. And this surge for him has very funnily coincided with him being moved a lot up the order. He was hitting towards the back to start the season. Since they've moved him to the leadoff spot, he has been raking. He is on the season now just hitting first. So his splits in 8 games, he scored 9 runs. He has a double, triple, 13 hits. He's only struck out 5 times to 2 walks, which he's not like a huge walk rate guy. He's got 6 steals hitting first, and he got another one tonight. So it hasn't updated. So he's up to 7 steals there. He had 9 steals the rest of the season. He has 9 steals in the last 10 games he's played, which is almost a little bit outlandish that he's pulling that off. Yeah, his first 77 games, he had 9 steals. His last 10, he has 9. So he has 18 on the season. He's obviously a fast guy. Yeah, he's a pretty bad fielder. That's going to have to sort of change, and he may eventually have to move to second or somewhere else if he can't really hack it at shortstop. But since they moved into the leadoff spot, he's really been producing for the Nationals. And their lineup very quietly this season has been dangerous. That's not really been the weak spot of their team. Their rotation's been bad, but their lineup's been pretty good. Also, his 91 WRC plus is better than Trey Turner. So if you're a Nationals fan, you can sort of revel in that. If you're one of the 5 Nationals fans that really actually looks into this team right now, you can take some solace that he's beating Trey Turner in WRC plus. But CJ Abrams has been pretty good this little stretch. Hopefully he can keep it going. That's all of our news for Hot Weeks and the Players of the Week, and we can get into. We talked a little bit about second half predictions and a little bit about the trade deadline last podcast. If you missed that one, we're going to get really into the swing of things, and it's sort of already kicked off with the first trade of the trade deadline season. I'll let you talk about this one, Jake, because it's from one of your teams.
That's right. The A's made the first big move of trade deadline season. It's not the first trade of the season. We've already seen Aroldis Chapman go and other minor moves prior in the season, but this is the first big trade, big's an operative word, of the trade deadline season. So the end of July, post All-Star break. And it's Shintaro Fujinami, a right-handed pitcher for the A's, being shipped off to the Baltimore Orioles. And in return, the A's received minor league reliever Easton Lucas. Shintaro Fujinami joined the A's this offseason as a free agent over from Japan. And while he does have really good stuff, he's really struggled with control up until recently, though. He's finally started to figure things out, which is really cool to see. This was a guy that started off the season just walking the whole world. Through his first 2 months in the majors, he had 24 walks in 30 innings, just could not find the strike zone. They moved him to the bullpen. He's had a little bit more success in the bullpen, but it took him a while to get his control down, and that has really happened recently. In his last 13 games, Shintaro Fujinami has a 2.93 ERA, and that also comes with a 2.32 FIP and a 0.98 WHIP. He's got a 28% strikeout rate, and the number we're all waiting for, 1.7% walk rate. This guy's walked 1 batter in his last 15 and a third innings. After being just one of the league's biggest walkers, comes with a 99 location plus and 117 stuff plus, according to Eno Saris's stuff plus metric. But yeah, I think this is a guy who's got a lot of potential. According to Mike Petriello, he's clearly pitching differently since joining the bullpen. He's using his fastball and his splitter a lot more. So he's put away his breaking pitches and gone more with the off speed. And he's also throwing a lot harder since he joined the bullpen. This guy can touch 102 miles per hour with his fastball. And he's going to Baltimore, where they have a very deep left field fence. So he's not going to get hurt too much by the home run ball. And I think the Orioles are actually one of those teams where you send a random reliever to them, they're going to turn them into somebody really good. We've seen that in recent years with random dudes. I mean, even Felix Bautista. How old would you guess Felix Bautista is?
Oh, God. I have no clue. Mid to late 20s.
Yeah, he's 28, but he debuted last year. So they are good at getting these random relievers: Felix Bautista, Yenier Cano, Danny Coulomb,
Brian Baker,
and a bunch of guys. Yeah, Chiano Perez, just a bunch of random dudes that they've had in recent years that weren't really anybody anywhere. They've come to Baltimore and they've become well-known relief pitching names. And now Fujinami comes there while he's starting to figure out his control. And I think the Orioles can really turn this guy into another relief ace and a bullpen that doesn't really need him. But the Orioles are looking to stack up that team heading into the stretch run.
I like how you talked about Felix Bautista and Yenier Cano, because they've just added this crazy fireballer Fujinami again to their bullpen that is just really good if he continues the form that he's been on. Obviously, Camden is like a huge pitcher's park now because they moved the field like parameters around. He's actually going to be the second Japanese player ever to be a Baltimore Oriole, which is also a pretty cool thing in and of itself. Koji Urahara is the other one. So, you know, 2 relievers also, which is cool there. If you didn't watch his appearance yesterday, he actually had a really good relief appearance yesterday. And he sort of like pointed to like the sky a lot and dedicated that like little outing to one of his closest friends that actually passed away. So
Cosmopolitan, shout out.
Yeah, Shintaro Yokota, so his former Hanshin Tiger teammate passed away. But Shintaro Fujinami, it's good to see him figure out like the stuff, because we talked about him a lot, like not at length, but we talked about him pretty well, like in the offseason when he signed, obviously, because he was a big import, and they signed him and Drew Rucinski, and Rucinski also hasn't really worked out. And Fujinami,
he's out for the season.
Yeah. That'll do it. But he wasn't really great before he was even injured. He was an innings eater. And Fujinami carving out a role. Talked about Pivetta earlier. Carving out a role as a reliever. Staying around in the big leagues, because it looked like this guy was like cooked, going to be DFA'd, and we never see him again. But it's good to see him actually figure it out. And now he's going to be possibly contending in playoffs. So it's good to see. I think the Orioles, we'll talk about that in, I guess, in just a few seconds when we talk about the trade deadline. I feel like the Orioles are going to be one of the huge kingpins to watch in the trade deadline, just because their depth is so good. They need to add if they want to really, really compete, because I think they'll get a playoff spot, but I don't know what's going to take to put them to the level that they could probably beat the top tier AL playoff teams in an actual series. But this is a good start. You can never have too many good relievers, especially in the playoffs.
That's right. And now we can talk about the return that the A's got. While Fujinami is a free agent this offseason, so they're only trading like 2.25 months of him. They really didn't get much in return. And you look at Fujinami's full season numbers and you can sort of understand, but we've sort of hyped him up a bit. This is a guy that was one of the top prospects coming up in Japan alongside Shohei Ohtani. He was compared to him a lot, more so on the pitching side, but they trade 2.25 months of Fujinami for Easton Lucas, who's a 26-year-old reliever who just reached AAA for the first time in his career. He had a 1.59 ERA in 17 innings at AA, and so far in 12 2/3 innings at AAA, he's got a 4.26 ERA. He's a left-hander. He's 6'4". There's not much else to talk about. He struck out a lot of guys at AA, but he's really struggled at AAA. I know that they have like a new ball at some level down there in the minors, and I'm not sure which one it is, which level it is. This doesn't get, as an A's fan, this doesn't really get me too excited. This really feels like a guy that's going to be up and down in the majors over the next couple of years and really won't contribute too much.
Yeah, this is a weird trade. Also, if you look at the chain that has happened. So they traded a couple seasons ago, they traded Jonathan Scope to the Milwaukee Brewers for Jonathan VR. They traded Jonathan VR for Easton Lucas from the Miami Marlins. And then they traded Easton Lucas for Shintaro Fujinami. So they turned Jonathan Scope into Shintaro Fujinami now.
Magicians.
Yeah. But now you get to look at this trade, and it feels like maybe Fujinami, the numbers sort of kind of dissuade people, but he's been very good as of late. But overall, the numbers still look bad. He's got like an 8 ERA still. So people that just look at like the surface level stats of what he's been doing, It feels like this return is not very good because he could potentially be one of the better relievers on the market because a couple of them have already come off the board. I mean, like you maybe have David Bednar, Josh Hader, depending on if the Padres sell. You have like, I don't know, there's a couple
Barlow.
more. Scott Barlow. But Scott Barlow, I mean, he's figured it out as of late, but he was also pretty bad to start the season. And like I said, Chapman's already off the board. So Fujinami, potentially one of the better rental relievers, especially if you need a fireballer. And they got a relief pitching prospect that has not been doing well, like you said. So I don't know. You would hope if you're an Athletics fan that they would get a little bit better return on some of the guys that they're selling because – what else are you really going to hope for at this point with that team other than for your trash ass owner to sell? So I don't know. It's trade and we like trades. So it's fun to talk about.
Do you want to start from the bottom of the list?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I got to scroll all the way to it though. Okay. So we are going to talk about the trade deadline at length today. Make some predictions, and we're going to start with CBS released an article. It was their top 20 big trade pieces that they think will be moved. Their top 20
RJ
trade
Anderson.
candidates. Yeah. So RJ Anderson, shout out to you.
Thank you for helping us.
The GOAT potentially.
We commissioned this. We commissioned this from him a couple months ago.
Yeah. But we'll talk about the top 20, and we'll start with 20. We just talked about an Athletics trade. We'll talk about another Athletics player, and it's going to be Brent Rooker. They have him listed as an outfielder / first baseman / designated hitter because that's most wherever he goes. But he's a rental, obviously. He's 20. He's going to be 29 into the season, I think is what it says. Do you want to do like a buy sell if they get traded, or do you want to see like what their best potential fit? Where do you think they'll go, or do you want to do both?
I say yes or no. Does he get traded, and also where do you think he ends up?
All right, I can do that. I'll start. He's definitely gonna get traded because the Athletics are going to trade literally anybody that they possibly can that has any value at all right now. That's not like got 5 years left to control.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you're going to trade Rooker, you sort of have to do it this season. He's still got a lot of control left. He's not a free agent until 2028, so they could have him for 4 more years. But he's an all-star this year. Like, this is going to be the peak of his value, even if he is pretty solid next year, like a 25 home run hitter that bats in the low 200s. Like, that's very easy to find. We've seen CJ Cron have trouble throughout his career, and he's a guy with a much longer track record of doing what he does. So I think it's going to be pretty difficult to get more on Rooker than they would this year, because not only do you have he's having the best year of his career, people know who he is, he's an all-star, but also you have those extra years of control that will add into that. So I think they should trade him. I think he will get traded. And where to is the toughest question. I think you want a team that needs bats, and more so in the outfield. The A's have a lot of outfielders, so they'll be fine without Rooker. But yeah, it's hard to determine what teams could be in need of an outfielder.
I have 2 potential fits already.
Let's hear
Milwaukee Brewers.
Sure.
Miami Marlins.
Yeah. I feel like the Marlins are pretty set in the outfield.
I feel like their big deal would be that he will help out because most of their outfield bats that hit for power are lefties. So they have like Jesus Sanchez, Brian De La Cruz. He's more like a gap hitter. He's also a righty. So Brent Rooker can come in and be a platoon bat. I like the fit with the Brewers a little bit better because the Brewers are a team that is run not on a shoestring budget, but they're not like a big spender. So getting a guy like this, that if you get late, late in his like aging cycle, I guess, not like career, because he's 28 now, going to be 29 into the season. The Brewers will have him for the several more years of control. They like guys like that. They tend to make trades that help them get more guys that are controllable. So I feel like this is a Brewers trade, like written all over it. I think that one sort of fits. And then like maybe the Mariners, because Teoscar Hernandez has sort of been a disaster.
Yeah, I just don't really see the Mariners being buyers. I think I believe in Milwaukee more. I mean, Miami does have Dane Myers, who I don't even know who that is, playing center field every single day. But that's just because Jazz is out, and obviously Ariel Garcia has been out since April. But you mentioned some other guys they have on their team: Jesus Sanchez, Jorge Soler,
Brian De La Cruz
as well. Yeah, and Garrett Hampson's still on that team, so they've got enough outfielders. I think the Brewers are a good fit there. They're fans of platooning. They've got platoons going on already, and I think he could be an upgrade over some of their right-handed options. I mean, they've got Raimel Tapia, not a right-hander, but they've got Raimel Tapia playing on the strong side of a platoon in right field. I think they could use an outfield upgrade.
Yeah, that guy's pretty bad. I think another fit potentially could be the Giants, just because, I mean, he's already in Oakland. It's a pretty short drive. Just move him on to San Fran. They platoon guys all the time, and they could use probably another big right-handed power bat.
Yeah, they got Austin Slater, though. I feel like they're chilling. They got a lot of outfielders. They got Luis Matos on the bench.
He can play first base, and now Lamont Wade could potentially be injured. He's been day to day. They never knew.
That's Lamont and Wilmer, bro. You don't talk bad about our first baseman.
Wilmer,
she's a legend.
Yeah, Bay Area legend. Wilmer Flores,
all-time legend.
All right, so we can move on to number 19, which this one is going to be sort of a weird one. This is Nick Senzel, third baseman / utility man for the Cincinnati Reds. Going to get traded, yes or no?
I don't know. This one is weird. He has not been playing at all, and it's partially because they've called up so many guys this year, and partially because he still has yet to break out. He had a really good rookie season, but he's a guy that struggled with tons of injuries. This was a second overall pick in 2016, so he's got tons of potential, but he's 28 this year. He's going to be a free agent after 2025, so he's got just 2 more years of control after this year. If they could trade him to get some upgrades elsewhere on the team, maybe some starting pitching depth or some more relievers, then yeah, I don't see why they shouldn't. Will they do it? I don't know. It's hard to tell. They have so many guys on the offensive end right now that they don't really need to worry about that, but I don't really see anybody that they'll be calling up. So like right now, if you look at their team, he's like, I don't know, they have 2 catchers on their bench right now. So I feel like they're somehow light on the bench guys, and Senzel has sort of been a perfect bench guy where he can play infield and outfield, and they don't really need to trade him, and they don't really have any other options to replace him. They can go like Stuart Fairchild from the minors or Jose Barrero, bring him back up, but I feel like they won't trade him. I feel like they're going to hold on to him. I don't think there's going to be anybody that's really like urging to, like, they really want to go get Nick Senzel. So I feel like if nobody comes knocking on the door, then they're not going to do it. And I don't see why any team would be interested in him right now.
I feel like that's probably the sentiment I would like to echo is like, if you're a Reds fan, you trade him yesterday because he's not playing. I saw a bunch of people mad because they took out Christian Encarnacion Strand for Senzel to get him at bat, and he was just terrible. They'll take out like Will Benson or whatever and throw him in like as a late inning like replacement. You're just not getting this guy enough at bats for him to really be worth having on your team. They have a bunch of guys that sort of fill the same role. I mean, like in a way, they have like him and then another guy that they probably need to get rid of, and Kevin Newman. That you don't really anticipate on being a real part of the future here. But really, what team is going to come be like, oh yeah, I'll trade you this guy, and a big part that I want in return is Nick Senzel? I don't think so.
The only team I could see like doing something like that is one of the smart teams, where they like see what the Reds have been doing wrong with him after all these years, and his price is so diminished that they would just be able to go get him on pennies on the dollar and then turn him into what everybody expected him to be.
The problem is most of the smart teams like that are going to be buyers, and they're not going to be buying Nick Senzel. So unless it's like a weird,
well, maybe that's
trade,
like the thing. That's the guy who they think like it's like the Dodgers with like Chris Taylor or Max Muncy, where it's like nobody really expects anything out of these guys, and then they go and they're like, oh, we'll give you like one of our relievers that's replaceable, and then they turn Nick Senzel into an all-star.
Fair, but I feel like that's like a one of one situation that he could get traded for. So I'm also going to err on the side of no, I don't think he moves.
All right.
We'll go to number 18, which is going to be Randall Grichuk, outfielder for the Colorado Rockies. If you remember him, he plays for the Rockies now. Poor guy. But what do you think here about Randall?
Well, he's actually been pretty solid this year. Last year was not what we expected from a guy going to Coors for his first time. 88 WRC plus did not take advantage of the better ballpark there, but this year he's batting 300, only a 111 WRC plus because it's accounting for Coors, and the power has been absolutely gone, but that's fine. He's only played 55 games, but he's been pretty solid, and he will be a free agent this offseason. So the Rockies don't really have any reason to hold on to him, but it's the Rockies. And I mean, they're not even playing him every day either. He's on like the short side of a platoon.
That's stupid.
Yeah, so I don't know. The Rockies have no reason to keep him. They're barely even playing him. He's got pretty solid and his numbers are good, so you could probably get a little bit of something out of him. He is 31 though, so I don't think anybody's going to be super excited about getting him. I don't know. It's the Rockies. I would say probably not, because it's the Rockies.
I'll play devil's advocate. Maybe the Rockies will do something smart. I think they'll move Randall Grichuk.
That's a mistake.
Well, that's why I said I'm playing devil's advocate. I know they're not going to do it, but they should, and I think they might. I think we'll go back, like pull up the picture of the draft room where it's like the three old guys with laptops. They're like, man, we should trade this guy. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I think they'll trade him, and then a couple fits that I think again that he probably fits. Milwaukee Brewers. They need an outfield bat, right-handed hitter. Does pretty well. We talked about him being good at Coors specifically. He's got a 106 WRC plus, which is 6 points ahead of league average in away ballparks this year on the road. Another one. This is going to be one that is going to make Yankees fans mad, because they're going to get Randall Grichuk and they're not going to get Cody Bellinger. They're going to expect Randall Grichuk to be the fixer of their terrible lineup without Aaron Judge. So I think he moves.
All right.
We can move to number 17, and it's going to be another Athletic. This is Seth Brown, obviously of the Oakland Athletics. Big left-handed power bat from Oakland. So,
yeah, this was a guy that I mentioned. I mentioned him in my most recent article for Pitcher List, talking about players to target in fantasy for the second half, and I included him on there with the point that if he does move teams, that he could have a big boost in value because he's got a better lineup around him. This is a guy that's a lot older than you would expect, considering he really didn't get everyday playing time until 2021, and now he's already 30. And he won't be a free agent until 2027, so he does still have 3 more years of control. And he's pretty one-dimensional. He's pretty much just a power guy. He doesn't walk a whole lot. 9% is like pretty solid, but it's not like a standout skill. He strikes out way too much. He doesn't provide a lot of average. He can steal a little bit, but he basically just hits home runs, and that's about it. Sort of stuck to corner, outfield, first base, DH, and he's not really a great fielder at any of those. So this is a guy that's probably going to go to a team that's just desperate for any type of offense, which, as you mentioned, the Yankees are one of those teams. I think the A's will try to trade him, but there may not be any suitors considering how one-dimensional he is. But the Yankees, I think they could use basically any upgrade that they can. And I'm not really sure if he is an upgrade over like Franchy Cordero or Billy McKinney right now, but I could definitely see him being traded. I think Rooker's probably got a higher chance of Brown than being traded.
I feel like he could be traded. And if you look at this article, so if anybody else wants to read this article, one of the potential fits on here, it literally listed as number 1 is for Seth Brown is the Mets. And I could sort of see that because the Mets are in a weird position now where like they don't really have anyone to sell like outside of like Scherzer, like to be real sellers at the deadline. They have one of the most, I think it's the most expensive payroll in all of baseball. So like they really need to buy, but they shouldn't. And this feels like a guy that they probably spend a little bit too much to get because he's got a little bit of control and they can sort of justify it in that way. So I kind of get it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't honestly think that he's worth trading for right now. He hasn't been very good. He's striking out about like 32% of the time. He hits a bunch of home runs, but he's still not really even doing that. But you can also chalk that up to he plays for the Athletics, and he's like one of the few power hitters apart from Rooker in that entire lineup. So they just really can pitch around him. He walks pretty decent. I think he's got a pretty solid, nothing great, like career walk rates, like 8.5, 9, something like that. I don't know. I don't feel like they'll move him just because I don't think the market will be there.
Fair.
And then next one on the list is going to be Tyler O'Neill of the St. Louis Cardinals. They're going to be sellers, and they're going to sell Tyler O'Neill. And where do you think he's going to go?
Well, I think they'll definitely be sellers. I don't know if Tyler O'Neill is the
he
guy.
might not be the one, but I feel like
No.
of that group, I haven't looked at the rest of this list, so we're playing it by ear. I feel like it's going to be one of him, or it's going to be Dylan Carlson that's going to be moved.
They're going to trade an
I feel like they'll be
outfielder, but
sellers.
O'Neill's been on the IL since May, and I don't know if they just shadow banned him to the IL, like because of that argument he had with the
get out of
manager.
here.
Yeah, get out of here. You're on the IL for the rest of the year. They do have other options to trade in the outfield. They're absolutely stacked there. They got Alec Burleson, they got Dylan Carlson, they got Jordan Walker. Brendan Donovan and Tommy Edman can both play in the outfield as well, and they have others in the minor leagues. It's like they're going to trade one of them. I don't know why any team would come calling for Tyler O'Neill, who's got only one more year of control left and has been injured all year, has only had that one good season, 144 WRC plus 2021, 5.6 F4. Every single year since then has been, and before then has been a below a league average WAR, which is 2. He's just, I don't even think he's that good. I think he's a pretty solid fielder who's fast and has power, but he strikes out too much and can't stay healthy because he's too yoked for his own good. And I don't know why, like maybe they just want to get rid of him at this point, but I don't know why any other team would come calling for him. I could definitely see another one of those outfielders traded there. A ton of guys on the Cardinals, I think, are going to get traded. And I don't think they're mentioned in this article at all. Jordan Hicks is one of them. He is about to be a free agent, and he's basically all but guaranteed. They put him in the closer role to make sure that he gets eyes on him so that they can ship him out at the deadline, get some interesting callers, and out of the rotation as well. I think Jack Flaherty and Jordan Montgomery are likely to go as well. I think Jordan Montgomery's about to be a free agent as well. Yeah, both of those guys are free agents. I don't think Tyler O'Neill's the guy.
I don't know. I feel like one of those guys, it's either going to be him or Carlson. I don't think they'd move Alec Burleson. I feel like it's going to be Carlson or O'Neill. I feel like it could potentially be more Carlson than O'Neill, but it really depends on the level that they want to sell. Like you said, I mean, he's sort of persona non grata in that clubhouse because he had the big argument. Maybe they just hate him. Maybe they want to send him somewhere bad to make him mad. Who knows? He's supposed to be reinstated from the injured list. He's been like on the IL like for a long time, but I think they're supposed to reinstate him tomorrow is what a lot of the reports are saying.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Shadow ban until we can put you on display.
Yeah, that's sort of why I'm leaning into that. I feel like they could move him.
If you had to choose one guy on the Cardinals outside of Jordan Hicks that you think is guaranteed to be traded, who would you put your money on?
One guy outside of them, Jordan Montgomery. I feel like Jordan Montgomery makes the most sense. I don't think the Cardinals are going to try to compete in the division. Starters like that will always be very valuable at the deadline. But if we want to get crazy, I feel like it's maybe Goldschmidt. I don't know. I feel like they probably move off Goldie just because he's getting up there in age. Maybe they see the writing on the wall. Who knows? But I don't know. Tyler O'Neill, I feel like they're probably going to show him the door. And as far as fit, I feel like this is another Yankees guy. Get Big Swole.
That's a huge Yankees guy.
Yeah.
That is a Yankees guy.
Yeah. Some Big Swole, little guy.
Put him over there with Bader.
Yeah, put him over there. Hang out with Harrison Bader, who is also not very good at baseball, like Tyler O'Neill. And just have them be terrible in the Yankees outfield this time. So I don't know. Yeah, this guy screams Yankees player. So that's sort of I feel like he's moving.
Yeah, I think it's going to be somebody else. I think those 3 pitchers I named are much more likely to be traded, and there are even others on the offensive side that I think will be gone before O'Neill. But if they do bring him back and they sort of are like, yeah, this is the guy, come see our Tyler O'Neill and please buy him, then yeah, that's a possibility. It wouldn't surprise me at this point. It would surprise me more so if he didn't go to somebody, if he went to anybody but the Yankees.
Definitely. And then this next guy, talked about a reliever already. I think this is the first one we're going to talk about. It's Joe Kelly of the Chicago White Sox. Obviously, it is not really going well for the White Sox this year. Mm-hmm. Joe Kelly is 30. He's a 34, almost 35-year-old reliever. He's going to be traded. He's got a club option, so he's not an impending free agent. He's got a club option for 2024, but there's no way that the White Sox escape this deadline without being sellers. They have no chance. Joe Kelly
is selling so
gone.
Much. They're selling so many guys. It's going to be wild. Tim Anderson's in that same position as Joe Kelly, where he does still have, actually, no, he's just a straight up, he has a club option as well, 2024. So he does. Somebody else on the team does. They've got so many guys that they're going to sell. We're going to talk about another one of them later, but I think Tim Anderson's gone. Kendall Graveman, Reynaldo Lopez, Keenan Middleton, maybe Aaron Bummer as well, and Joe Kelly. I think they're all gone. I think they're going to trade all of their relievers. There's a shot Liam Hendricks gets traded if he comes back healthy. He also only has 1 more year on his deal. But yeah, I think we're going to see that whole bullpen just spread across the Major League Baseball because they have so many guys that are about to be free agents or will be after another year or have club options. So there's going to be a ton of guys on the move, and there's no reason for the White Sox to hold on right now. In terms of bullpens, where they could go, every team could use a reliever. I don't know which one specifically would want Joe Kelly. He's great when he does pitch. He's injured right now, but I think it's hard to pin him down because it's like every single bullpen could always use upgrades.
Yeah. Immediately, like there's a couple romantic fits. I feel like reuniting him with the Boston Red Sox obviously feels pretty special for me. Obviously postseason hero, but yeah, I feel like he's going to move for sure. I feel like another one that makes a lot of sense is the Rangers. I feel like the Rangers bullpen of the contending teams right now, I feel like the bullpen is definitely the weakest part of their team. It's not very good outside of Chapman because they just lost Josh Sborz for a while. And Joe Kelly would go a long way towards fixing up that bullpen a little bit. So I think Rangers, Red Sox, maybe the Rays or the Braves. I feel like the Braves could also probably swing a trip. Literally any of the ones that have a legitimate chance to win the World Series when they make the postseason will probably get Joe Kelly. So like you can that one, and then maybe the Red Sox if they want to be cool guys with their old friend. But on that note, we can move to number 14, which is going to be this is an old one, and it says Aroldis Chapman from the Royals. He pitches for the Texas Rangers, so we're going to skip that one. And then this next one is Alexis Diaz of the Reds.
You can skip that one, honestly.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. Never going anywhere. And this number 12 is going to be Alex Lang of the Tigers. So where do you think he's going to get traded?
That one's interesting because he also has a lot of years of control. I think it depends on how the Tigers see themselves, because just last year I was predicting them to be like the big breakout team, and they completely disappointed everybody, and they haven't turned things around this year. They haven't been absolutely awful like some other teams in their division, but they've not been good. They are 42-52, which that's not going to get you in the playoffs. And Lang still does have enough control left where it's like you can see him being a part of that next good Tigers team. He's got 4 more years of control. He's been very solid this year. I think he should have been the team's all-star representative. Sorry, Michael Lorenzen. But I don't know. I feel like it just depends on how many teams are interested. And considering the status of the Cardinals and the White Sox, teams that we didn't expect to be in this point, and the plethora of bullpen arms that are available on the wire, I don't know if any team's going to be like paying up a lot of money for Alex Lang, who's got a lot of control left. He's still only 27. He's a very solid reliever. And I think the Tigers asking price is probably going to be a lot higher than those 1-year rentals, which most teams are looking for. Maybe a guy with an extra year of control, a club option or whatever. Those guys are more appealing than somebody like Lang, who you're locked into for 4 years, and you're not really sure if everything's going to work out there. And you also have to give up multiple prospects and stuff. We just saw the precedent set of how much you have to pay for Aroldis Chapman, for Shintaro Fujinami. Those are low prices for guys that are rentals this year. I wouldn't want to go out and get Alex Lang. I don't think he gets traded.
Yeah, I'm also going to err on the side of no. I don't think the Tigers makes any sense for them to trade him. They're 42-52, and I honestly feel like the Tigers, I don't think they're going to be big buyers, but I could see them trying to add a couple pieces to their bullpen because that division is so wide open. The leader of the division they're 2 games above 500. So the Tigers, for whatever reason, could go on a run. I know there's a couple young guys in their lineup that are still that are hitting a little bit better. Torkelson's hitting a little better. Kerry Carpenter's back. They could maybe be very minor buyers to try to fix their terrible bullpen. Their rotation sucks. Their bullpen is awful. Outside of Jason Foley and Alex Lang. So no, I'm going to say he definitely doesn't move. I don't think this is going to be a trade deadline. I think last year we saw the deal with Scott Effross. I don't think there's going to be a lot of that guy. I don't think there's going to be a lot of controllable relievers that are on the younger side move at all, like you said, because we just saw the precedent be set that you don't really have to give up anything for these rental relievers. Like, unless they're going to be the top dollar ones, like for whatever reason, if the Padres decide they're moving Hader, like those guys aren't going to move. And this next one, we talked about Joe Kelly. This is going to be another White Sox player, Lance Lynn, who has had an up and down season. Does he move? Yes or no?
I say yes. He's got a 2024 club option. The White Sox have no reason to keep him around. I think most teams will be judging him based off his underlying metrics: 6.06 ERA, 3.84 xFIP. He's looking like old Lance Lynn. He's just been unlucky this year. He's striking batters out at the highest rate of his career in terms of K per nine, 27% strikeout rate as well. I think this is the same old Lance Lynn that we all know, and I think some teams will give up a little extra knowing that they have control over whether or not he's on their team next year. Some teams may not want him for an extra year. Some teams may want him for an extra year. I think the Rangers are one of the teams that could go asking for his services, considering that they lost DeGrom. They don't have a ton of depth there in that rotation outside of, the 5 guys that they already have there, and a couple guys in the minor leagues. But considering, like, I don't trust what Dane Dunning's doing, Martin Perez has not really lived up to what he did last year, and Andrew Heaney's been really up and down. It's really just like Nathan Eovaldi and John Gray, and Lance Lynn, I think, would be a big upgrade. And they already are pretty familiar with what Lance Lynn has done for that team.
Yeah, the Rangers stick out as a pretty big one for me. I think he's obviously going to be traded, but I'm going to throw out a couple different ones because you already touched on the Rangers. I think the Rays could make some sense. There's been a couple of reports that there's already been some trade discussion there. I don't know if that potentially would happen. I think a outlier one that makes a lot of sense would be the Diamondbacks. I think that's a young rotation that could use a little bit of juice to try to get them over the line because they're still competing at the top of the NL West. And could, if they don't win the NL West, would be in prime position to win one of the NL wildcards. So I think they could probably get Lance Lynn and it'd go a long way towards their rotation. He's obviously got another year of control. And in that same vein, I think he also fits in with the Cincinnati Reds, who could potentially look for another starter to try to help bolster their playoff chances this year. He's an older starter. He's got this year and next year with the club option. So if they decide, okay, maybe Lodolo comes back and we think he'll be ready, maybe we can blood in another one of our young starters. Sure. You either decline the club option next year or you let him go one more year and then you just let him walk at the end of that one. He'll be on the older end of things. You can blood in another one of your young starters to continue with their rotation. So I feel like that sort of fits with the timeline that the Reds are looking at. Lance Lynn is definitely going to be traded. But I think it could potentially be to one of those two young teams that are vying for a spot.
Yeah. And the next 3 are Giants guys. And this was written in the 1st of June before the Giants have gone off in the last 2 months. So I think we don't really consider Giants sellers right now.
Definitely not. And those 3 players were Jock Peterson, JD Davis, and Alex Cobb. None of those guys are definitely moving. Big shout out to Alex Cobb also, who was first-time All-Star. That really deserved it. So no, Giants absolutely not sellers. We can move to number 7, which is sticking with the White Sox, and it's Yasmani Grandal. Yeah, he's definitely moving because basically anyone that is a rental or remotely close to being so with the White Sox is getting out of there. Where do you think he lands, though?
I don't know. He's about to be a free agent. He's just pretty mediocre at this point in his career. We saw some weird years in 2020 and 2021, and he wasn't able to put things together last year or this year. 97 WRC plus, 0.3 F4. Not a great fielder anymore. He used to be one of the best in the league. He's at 34 already too. I think maybe a team that doesn't have a great backup catcher could go out and get him. Which I'm not familiar off the top of my head with teams that don't have good backup catchers.
Yankees.
That's
another.
I don't know.
He's another prime. He's another prime Yankees guy.
You think so?
Yeah, he sucks. That's why.
Who the Twins got? Ryan Jeffers. That's fine. I don't know. I feel like the Rays probably do something weird.
Maybe.
And they still got Francisco Mejia and
what about
Christian Bethancourt.
What about the Marlins? Who's the Marlins backup catcher?
They had Jacob Stallings and Nick Fortes, which
I don't even
yeah,
know who that
I
guy
don't know.
is. Yeah, maybe
Oh,
he'll get traded for nobody.
maybe the Reds, who already have 3 catchers, maybe they want a 4th.
That'd be sweet.
Trade him for nobody. Maybe the Rockies will get him.
Maybe they'll trade him like they did with the maybe they'll do the Guardians trade where they trade Yasmani Grandal for himself. He'll end up back on the White Sox by the end of the year.
Maybe the Phillies. The Phillies have JT Realmuto. They don't really want to be relying on Yasmani Grandal, but having a guy like that can be like a veteran guy in the clubhouse, you don't really have to count on the field, I think would be good. They got Garrett Stubbs playing backup, and he's nothing special.
Yeah,
I think Yasmani goes to the Phillies.
Good call. I'm gonna stick with Yankees. I feel like Yankees for sure. And this next guy, hey, he also plays for the White Sox. It's Tim Anderson, shortstop / second baseman, because he's a very bad shortstop. He's probably 100% going to move. I would almost go over 100%, but you can't really do that. So Tim Anderson is definitely going to be traded in my book. What do you think?
Yeah, it just I don't know. It's sort of a weird situation because I wouldn't expect the White Sox to pick up that club option considering how he's played this year. Yeah, there's really no reason for them to do that, because if they do want to re-sign him, they could just decline the club option and sign him back to a 1-year deal or whatever. But I think there's probably going to be some teams that are interested because maybe they know what tweak he has to make. He's been really unlucky in terms of StatCast metrics, one of the biggest underperformers, but that's not to say that his expected performance is any good. His expected WOBA is nearly 40 points above his WOBA, but it's still really bad. It's like 280. So like, even if he does figure things out, I think this is a guy that needs a change of scenery to get back together. And I think a team will probably not want to rely on him so much, where it's like, this is our big acquisition at the deadline and we're counting so much on you, Tim Anderson, because that's going to put even more pressure on him to figure things out. I think the team that acquires him will want him to be somebody that they don't have to rely on, but if he does figure things out, could make the team bonkers. I think the Dodgers are that team. They got Miguel Rojas playing shortstop. They don't really need to rely on Tim Anderson for multiple years because they got Gavin Lux coming back at some point. I think Tim Anderson's a guy that could be like a bench guy. And if he doesn't work out, they still got Miguel Rojas. That's who they've been using. But if he does work out and they do help him figure things out, which Dodgers are pretty good at that could really be like a huge benefit to that lineup.
Yeah, I think the only one that really, really makes sense would be the Dodgers, because I just don't think he really fits into many other teams that have that position open for him. Maybe like the Astros or the Braves could sort of fit him in somewhere, but even that would maybe be a stretch for me. A lot of people are like, oh, you keep him and you bounce back. He has the same career OPS as Mike Brasso. No, you don't. He sucks. Whatever team trades for him is not going to be relying on him, because Tim Anderson, he's gotten unlucky this year, but I'm a hater. I'm very well aware of this. I don't think Tim Anderson has been or like really ever been or will ever be that good. It's like, oh, he carried their offense. How? When? He had like a 140 WRC plus what year? And I think it was like 2020. He had, in the shortened season, he only played 49 of the 60 games. So he still missed some time then. And then he posts that his best WRC plus any other year is 128. Hey, guess what year that one was? 2019 with the juice ball. I don't believe in Tim Anderson really ever being a great baseball player. He's obviously a cool player. Yeah, he's fun. He's got great personality. He seems like a wonderful guy. He's not a star level talent like you really expect. I'm honestly 50-50 on this one. I think there's a decent chance that he just stays with the White Sox and they just decline the club option, because I don't think there's big enough interest for him to move anywhere of any consequence.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's either going to be Dodgers, Astros, or Braves. I think like one of the contending teams that won't have to rely on him in the middle infield, or he's just going to be mired in limbo, AKA playing for the White Sox. So yeah, I don't know on that one. We'll stay with the Southsiders here, and we'll talk about Dylan Cease, who's had an up and down season as well. What do you think about him moving this trade deadline?
I don't know. I don't really see it. They'll be selling low on him as well. He also has 2 more years of control, 2024 and 2025. So it would be a good time to trade him in terms of getting more out of that control. But you're selling low on him after a career high year. Maybe a team thinks that he's still an ace and that he'd be a big upgrade to the team. But I don't really see him getting traded. If he does, I could see him going to like the Orioles, maybe.
Yeah, I could potentially see that. I feel like if he moves, it's going to be to one of two teams. I would say Orioles or I would say Astros, and it's going to have to be one of those teams that has a lot of high minor league depth, or can swing a huge trade package. John Granado, who's does the ESPN,
get multiple guys.
Yeah, John Granado. Granado in what happened?
I'm just saying the Dodgers could go get Cease and Tim Anderson.
One of the ones that I saw was John Granado, who does the ESPN radio in Houston, said that he's heard rumblings that the Astros may consider trying to make a double move for Dylan Cease and Luis Robert, which if you are them, wow. That's a blockbuster. That would be crazy.
I would love to see that.
That would be really ridiculous. So maybe, but it'd have to be either a team's going to give up a lot of high minor league depth, and it has to be one of the farms that can afford to do that. Like the Orioles sort of fit that. I talked about them being the potential kingpins. Like they could go out and get literally anybody that they wanted to. Reds are sort of in the same vein, but the Reds are probably I feel like the Reds would stay away more from rentals this year, except for one, which I might talk about in a little bit. Other than that, I think Cease stays because you said they're selling really low on him and they don't need to. Yeah. The White Sox are cheap. I don't know if they're that stupid. So I don't know. Well, I think they're stupid. I don't think they're that stupid.
Okay.
The next one is staying in the AL Central, which is the best division in baseball, and it's Eduardo Rodriguez of the Detroit Tigers. Do you think he moves? Yes or no?
He's a free agent in 2027. So technically he's got 3 more years of control, but he can opt out after this year. So that's why he's making these lists. This, I feel like, is a lot up to him, not whether or not he gets traded. But I feel like if I were him, you're having a great season. You have the opportunity to escape this Tigers team that you've locked yourself into. He's got a 2.70 ERA this year. He's already been on the injured list and returned, so he's looking fine. And I don't see why the Tigers would hold on to him. I think they do want to hold on to him, but they probably have to have that discussion with him. I don't know if you can do that legally. Be like, hey, bro, are you going to opt out? And he's just like, I don't know, maybe. Trade me and see. We'll find out. Depends on where I am.
That's such a rough situation to be into.
Yeah, because it's like they probably want to hold on to him if he doesn't opt out. But if he does opt out and they hold on to him, they're going to be like, shit, why did we do that?
No.
I think if they want to be safe, I think if they want to be safe, they gotta just trade him. Because I think on top of benefiting the team in that regard and getting a return for a guy that may be out the door, I think it also puts some goodwill with Erod, where they're like, oh no, we're looking out for you, bro. We want you to win this year. Go to the free agent market. We'll give you a bigger deal if we're really, truly in love with you that much. We'll give you a bigger deal this offseason, and you come right back to us because we showed you we want you to be in the best situation. And then it's up to him from there. I think he does get traded. Where to, though? That's the biggest question. I think I don't think there's too many options, to be honest.
I'm with you. I think they trade him. I don't know if they can be like, hey, Erod, do you want to move? Yeah or no? Because of course he'd probably be like, yeah, please trade me.
He's going to the Phillies.
Phillies makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go ahead and say Red Sox because he's already had proven record of success with the Red Sox. They kind of need some help in their rotation because a couple of guys are not really panning out. And I don't think they have all that much high depth to look at to potentially blood into their rotation. The Red Sox are never really going to be in a position where they're truly rebuilding. They're obviously still over 500. They're not last in that division anymore because I think the Yankees have usurped that from them. I think I would go with Red Sox if he moves just because, they can do that. But the problem is like what does the return look like for Erod? Because he does have the opt out. So like say a team
It is
really
gonna be weird, funky.
If a team gives up a lot to get Erod, they're gonna have to go into it assuming that he's going to opt into the option, which like if you're on a team like the Red Sox that is sort of like a flux team where they could be competing, they could be not, they could be sort of stuck in the limbo where you're around 500. That sucks. Like he should opt out of that if you really want to win, or if he just cares about money, because if he comes in and really shows out, then you can opt out and get more money, like you said, with the Detroit Tigers, because they just sign him for more money, which would be very funny to me. But it's a weird trade to sort of try to manufacture. The Tigers almost have to trade him because the chances are they don't really get back in the thick of things in that division unless they start making moves, which would be sort of weird given their timeline. I don't know. This is one of the weirdest ones to call. I think in terms of destination, I think he's 100% getting traded. I just don't know where to.
Sure.
And this next man on the list is going to be Shane Bieber of the Cleveland Guardians. Do you think he's going to get traded? Yes or no?
This one is complicated by him landing on the IL earlier this month with elbow inflammation. If I'm a team, I'm not giving prospect capital for a guy that's already showing signs of being injured. He has had a big workload throughout his career at a young age too. So this sort of makes a lot of sense. And I wouldn't really say he's at his peak right now. He's probably having the worst year of his career. It's arguable alongside his debut campaign, but he does have less WAR than that year in more innings. So arguably his worst year. He's got one more year of control. The Guardians are really smart about the timing of when they trade guys. We've seen them trade Clevenger and Kluber and Carrasco and other guys that you wouldn't really expect them to trade when they traded. And then it always turns out to be the right move. And I think Bieber being on the trade block right now makes a lot of sense, even with that one more year of control, a guy that you probably want to keep around. I think the injury really complicates things too much. I don't think any team, like if any team does go to get him, they're going to want a big discount. And I don't think the Guardians are going to want to play around with that. I think they wait until the off season to ship him out.
I think that makes a lot of sense too. The Guardians are still very much in it with a shout in this division.
That too.
Like they still have a chance to win the division. I don't think that they would really want to like make their team worse unless they get a really big return for Bieber, which the injury plus a lot of warning signs with him, velocity being down, not striking out very many guys, just numbers inflated in general. I don't think a team is really going to come out of the woodwork and be like, hey, we're going to give you like a top 5 prospect in our farm and a lot more for Shane Bieber. That's not going to happen. I don't think that they're going to sell low on him because Cleveland doesn't really do that. Like they're really good at trading their guys because they have a proven track record of doing so. So I don't think that they would really sell super low on Shane Bieber. I feel like selling low-ish on him in the offseason makes more sense when they have a chance to sort of reevaluate what they have right. Like at that point, I don't think that they would do that now. No, I don't think he moves.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 2 on this list is our last White Sox player that we're going to talk about, and is Lucas Giolito. I'm pretty sure he's a free agent at the end of the season. Where is he going to land, Jake?
I think he's like the biggest guy that's guaranteed to be traded and is going to get like a big return, even though there's only a half year of control. He's not having the best season of his career, especially in terms of underlying metrics, but this is a guy that I think is a draw for fans. I think he's a cool player. I think people like him. I think he's been very solid in recent seasons, and he's somebody you can rely on, and you don't have to put in a lot of investment because he's only going to be there for half a year. It's hard to tell where he's going to go because there are so many options. Every team could always use a boost on the starting pitching side. It was difficult. There's so many options. I'm going to say goes to the D-backs. They don't have a lot of starters right now, but he goes to the D-backs. They don't really have to give up too much. They can still feel good about having enough prospects for their extended streak of postseason runs. And I think the Diamondbacks are falling down in the race too, so they sort of need a little bit of influx, and I think that starting rotation is where they need it the most.
There's been several different reports, like from John Morosi and from other and like news outlets, that the Dodgers are interested in him, which could also be, they literally will do that for every single player that's on the trade block.
Yeah.
But I feel like that makes a lot of sense for him to land with the Dodgers. D-backs I could also see. And then another team, I talked about them earlier with Lance Lynn. In the same vein, Lucas Giolito also sort of fits with the Reds. I mean, he's a rental. If you really want to go for it this season, go for Giolito. It probably costs them like a couple pitching prospects, like maybe sort of in like their top 20, like I don't know, top 30, but their farm is very deep. They already have sort of their rotation. A lot of guys locked in, like Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott, like Graham Ashcraft. Like they just sort of have the one other spot that's like up for grabs. Get Giolito now. Yeah, maybe he's good this season, gets you over the line, let him go. I don't think they'd re-sign him. I think that he sort of fits with the Reds. Yeah, I think that one's pretty possible, but I feel like the Dodgers are probably the biggest, like, yeah, he'll probably end up there for me. And then the last guy to talk about is obviously going to be the biggest discussion piece around all of the trade deadline, just like he's been around the entire baseball season. It's Shohei Ohtani. Will the Angels trade him? Yes or no? And this one's tough because there's a lot of answers to this question. Even like I've gone over it in my head a bunch of times, like what makes the most sense for the Angels at this point? What makes the most sense for Ohtani at this point? Like, do you think he gets traded? What are your thoughts here?
I don't know. Yeah, that's difficult to say just like yes or no there.
Yeah.
Because there is so much nuance to the question.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should trade him is the first thing. I don't think they're making the postseason, especially with Trout out for so long and the rest of the team. I mean, the team, even with Trout there, was sort of declining as the season had gone on as well. I think they should trade him if they want to have any ability to, be a team that can contend in the next few years without Ohtani, because they could get a huge return. And as much as the fans are going to miss Ohtani for the final couple months of the season, you're going to miss him forever. He's gone. He's not coming back to LA this offseason. And you've already had him for like 5.5 years. So it's like you're lucky you had him while you had him. You should be glad that you have the opportunity to trade him and that you don't have to be like on that fringe of the postseason right now where it's like, oh no, we could maybe make the postseason. Like, let's hold on to him because if we do make it, we want Shohei to be there. They're 500 right now. They're not winning the division. I don't think they're going to make the wild card either. I think that the best decision that the franchise could make would be to trade him, because that does just bring such an influx of talent in. And if you don't trade him, as much fun as it's going to be to have him for the final 2 months in a season where he's likely to have a historic season-ending line, I think the influx of talent that you could get is so much more worth than just like having that one prospect that comes in with the draft pick that you get for the qualifying offer. That's just going to be really disappointing when you don't make the playoffs and then you get a shitty prospect in the draft because you didn't want to trade Shohei because there were 2 months in the season where you could have like increased ticket sales. I think he's going to whatever team gives up the best prospect package. And I think the team that probably, because this is not up to Shohei here, I think there's teams that are going to go crazy for this. The team I'd love to see him go to, the Rays, that would be awesome. I would say the Giants, but I want them to sign him in the offseason and not have to give up prospect capital before they give up $750 million. I think it's going to be the Yankees. I think the Yankees are like that team that needs that big influx of talent. Would be the big move, and they would think like, okay, we could like show them what New York's like and sort of try to pitch staying here in the off season and for the rest of his career. I feel like he's going to the Yankees.
The Yankees is definitely like a big fit for him because a lot of like what's been reported around the trade is that it's going to take you probably 2 guys. I think the initial reported one was it's 2 guys in your top 20 and then 2 guys that are more or less around the major league like level. And the Yankees sort of fit the bill there. But I feel like if you get Ohtani here, if you're the Yankees, it's going to cost you Volpe. It's going to cost you someone else, like maybe an Austin Wells and potentially a Jason Dominguez. I feel like that probably would work. But the Yankees would be gutting their farm system to potentially try to get Shohei for like the stretch run, which there's a reasonable chance they miss the playoffs entirely because they're last in their division. They're last in the AL East, and that's not saying a whole lot. Let's be honest. They have like the highest winning percentage like of any division by a lot. It's like 572. It's almost like 600, which is crazy. But the Angels would be stupid not to trade him in a way, and stupid to trade him. Like if Mike Trout does not get hurt here, like recently, they don't trade him, and they're buyers, and they try to win that last wild card spot. Probably come up short because of the Angels and they can't do anything right. But I think the Trout injury here basically puts the writing on the wall in massive bold. It was already there. They just bolded it. Like the writing's definitely on the wall. They're going to trade him. They're going to have to get back a huge package for him. The Rays make a lot of
package for them.
Okay. Okay. Shut up, Jake. Save it for the next episode.
All right.
Yeah, I think the Yankees make some sense. I think the Rays trade would be really, really
so much
good.
Fun.
It'd be so much fun, but the Rays would also have to sell out to get him, and the Rays are not a team that really does that. I see them.
We all know where he's going, bro.
Where? The Rockies.
Colorado, baby.
I've seen all right, hear me out. I've seen a lot of trades actually mock him to go to the Reds, and I could see that happening too, because the Reds could really sell out and get him. And then if you have this young team around him that looks crazy, like you could potentially get him to re-sign, but that also relies on the Reds owner not being a cheap ass and actually shelling out for the contract that he deserves.
Sort of like, on that same vibe, I feel like the Orioles are in that spot where they have so much young talent that if they do give up guys in the minors or guys that have already made their debut, they have enough depth in the minors or already on the roster. I think the Orioles owner is much more willing to shell out the money for someone like Ohtani, and they could use him in the rotation. And I think either those might make more sense to the Yankees. I think as much as like I can envision him on the Yankees, I think the Orioles and Reds make more sense for trade fits. I don't think that's somewhere where Shohei would sign in the offseason.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like the Rays, for me, fit the best in terms of a trade fit and potentially getting him to re-sign, because this is a team that they only really have money long-term tied up in Wander Franco. They've shown now that they may actually be willing to spend a lot of money on like one or two potential players. They've already got the potential stadium deal in place to move to a stadium where fans can actually get into, and they'll get out of the terrible stadium that is Tropicana Field. Tampa is a burgeoning sports market because the Lightning have been very good. They've won the Stanley Cup. The Buccaneers are bad now, but they won a couple Super Bowls. Like, this is becoming a really big sports town. Like, and then if you get the Rays now, you trade for them, like, or you trade for Ohtani, you convince him to re-sign. Like, now you have a team that's insanely like young with, they would still have a good top end of their farm system. They have the young major leaguers that they could move, like in addition to the top prospects, and they could really move guys out of their like top five and be fine. They could move Manzardo, and they could move like a Mason Montgomery. They could move like a Taylor Walls, and then I don't know, maybe like Josh Lowe or something, like, to get it over the line. And that doesn't hurt.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
That doesn't hurt their bottom line, nor does it hurt their top five at all, because I think that could potentially do it. It's just whatever team trades for Ohtani is either going to be one that like they expect to be in World Series contention, or they think they might be able to get him to re-sign. That's like the biggest question around it, because like the Angels should trade him, but they're going to trade him to whoever offers the most, obviously. But whoever offers the most is also going to be the team that's like, okay, we're gutting our farm to try to get this guy to either win us a World Series, or we need to have him for the foreseeable future. And I just don't really know where he fits in that.
Who's your money on?
I'll go Rays. I think the Rays could really swing a trade for him and potentially convince him to re-sign. Other than that, I don't think like the Yankees. I don't know. I'm
changing my answer to the Orioles.
the Orioles make a lot of sense. It's just also like, it's weird to imagine Shohei like with the Orioles. And
but see,
like
that's
all
why
in
it's a
Maryland.
trade. It doesn't. It's
That's
not up
true.
to him. That I think
That's
that's
true.
what makes it make more sense is that they
That's
have
why
a
I also
prospect
think
capital.
that's
It's
why
like
I
you don't have
also
to worry
think the
about the team.
Reds, because he's never going to sign with the
Sure.
Reds, because the Reds don't have enough money to pay him.
Sure.
The Reds themselves might not have enough money to pay $500 million or more for Shohei Ohtani. Like, I don't know. That part complicates it. But I really think whatever team trades for him is one that thinks they can get him for the long haul.
Yeah.
And for me, that fits the Rays.
Well, before we move on, I think this list left out some guys. I mean, we talked about some of the relievers on the
definitely.
White Sox that are guaranteed to be on the move. The White Sox, they've sort of dominated this list. The Tigers will be big sellers, though. Outside of Eduardo and Alex Lang, there aren't too many big options that are going to be traded, though I think one of the notable ones, only because he's an all-star, is Michael Lorenzen. He's a free agent this offseason. Do you think he gets traded?
Michael Lorenzen? Yeah, I think he does. There's no reason for the Tigers to hold on to him, even if they are still trying to compete for that division, because why would you really care about Michael Lorenzen? This is the perfect time to sell high on him. He was an all-star. Everyone knows he shouldn't have been. Like, let's be honest. But you could still net something a little bit like decent back for him. There's a couple other names that really need to be talked about also. I mean, it depends. The Cubs also hold a lot of cards in terms of like big rentals for this. If they decide to sell, there's a chance that they don't, which like they're in a weird spot right now. They could still potentially compete in the AL, like in the NL Central. They'd win the AL Central. That division sucks, but like they compete in the NL Central if they bought, or if they sell. They have a lot of guys that could move, like, Julian Merryweather. Julian Merryweather could potentially be one of the only relievers that would fit the Scott Efros mold from last season. Obviously, Marcus Stroman, Cody Bellinger. They have a couple guys on like 2 years, like maybe Trey Mancini. Yan Gomes is a catcher rental. Like, they have a lot of guys.
Happ's about to be a free agent.
No, he's not. They re-signed him.
Oh, they did?
They did. They re-signed him.
Frick.
He was one of the only ones they re-signed. He got like a 3 or 4 year deal.
Oh, freaking Fangraphs lied to me.
Yeah.
There it is. I see it.
Obviously talked about Jordan Hicks, but the Cardinals hold some cards there too. They could potentially move off of Arenado. I feel like that one would be one of the big blockbusters, and I don't personally see that one happening. Paul Goldschmidt could move. There's other rentals like Andrew McCutchen from the Pirates, David Bednar. I don't know. There's a lot of guys. And then that also leaves out the Padres. Like, what will the Padres do? Because they're sort of like in the mire in that division. I don't think they have a chance to win it. Like, they have Soto. Like, they could move Soto. They could move Hader. We're not even talking about another White Sox player that could be moved. Like, Luis Robert Jr. wasn't on this list. He could potentially be traded. Eloy Jimenez could be traded. And then Blake Snell. What will the Mets do? Like, they could potentially move Pete Alonso. I think he's an impending free agent. If they do sell, he's like the big one. It's going to be a weird one. That's also not including Max Scherzer, who's got a club option. And if they're willing to trade him, he's probably the best rental starter on market.
Yeah.
Outside of Stroman.
You named a lot of guys. I'll just run through all those teams. You just give me yes or no. Do they get traded? Kansas City Royals, Scott Barlow traded, yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Los Angeles Angels, they've got to trade more than one guy if they do trade Ohtani, right?
Right.
Hunter Renfroe, free agent this offseason, yes or no? Yep. Yeah. They also have...
What does Estevez's deal look like?
I think they signed him to a 2-year deal, but I mean, he's up. Yeah, he's up. Carlos Estevez and Matt Moore.
Yes, on Estevez. Has Matt Moore back from injury yet?
Matt Moore is back from injury. He's a free agent this offseason.
Then yes, absolutely.
All right, and they're both gone. The A's have other guys I think that may be traded. Trevor May, free agent next year.
Yes.
Gone. Who wants him though? I'll give you a penny for Trevor May. Paul Blackburn, free agent after he's got 2 more years of control.
No.
All right. We can go to the Mariners. I think are sort of out of it as well. And they have some guys that could be traded. How long do they have?
Teoscar's a free agent.
Teoscar Hernandez traded, yes or no?
Yes, he's been bad with the Mariners anyway. Get him out of there.
All right, Teoscar Hernandez gone. Computer doesn't like how many guys I'm clicking on.
How many dudes?
Yeah, right. I mean, Paul Sewald only has 2 more years of control. Traded?
No.
All right, I agree there. And then for the National League, the Cubs, that's a big one. They've got some
They have a lot of guys.
They do. So Cody Bellinger traded, yes or no?
It's tough to say right now. I feel like this one should be revisited in like 2 days. The Cubs are like in flux right now. Like if they lose like 3 more games, they're going to sell. If they win 3 more games, they're going to buy. They're like literally right on the cusp. I'm going to go on the negative side and say, yes, I think they will trade Cody Bellinger.
All right. Kyle Hendricks 2024 vesting option.
No, I don't think they'll trade Kyle Hendricks.
Marcus Stroman 2024 opt out.
Yes, I think they're going to trade him, even though he's very specifically said he doesn't want to be traded and he wants to re-sign with the Cubs, which is ridiculous that you would trade a guy like that. They haven't even had discussions with him on an extension, is what he said. They're going to trade him, and he's going to go to the Diamondbacks.
Rockies Chris Bryant 2 years into his mega deal.
No way.
Ryan McMahon, he got extended, didn't he?
Yeah, he got extended. I don't think they'll move him.
Yeah,
CJ Cron.
Elias Diaz, CJ Cron,
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll move both of those.
Both
guys.
of them?
I think both of them are free agents now.
I think Elias, CJ Cron definitely is. Elias Diaz has 1 more year of control.
They'll still move him because this is like the prime time too, because he was the All-Star Game MVP.
No, but it's you always overestimate the Rockies. They're going to do the opposite of what you think they're going to do.
They're going to sign him to a fucking 38-year deal.
That's right. There we go. He's going to be playing with Daniel Bard when they're both 100 years old.
Yeah, my man.
I think the Mets will be sellers. They are pretty terrible, 45 and 50. Tommy Pham, I think, is guaranteed out of there.
He's traded 100%.
Pete Alonso has 1 more year of control after this year. Do you think he's traded?
No.
Me neither. Starling Marte is terrible.
Yes.
He's gone. They still have him for 2 more years.
He sucks. Steve Cohen will pack his bags for him. Steve Cohen will he'll veto anything. Like, we're not going to trade him. Yeah, like hell you are. And he's going to sell
Max Scherzer still got 1 more year.
He's got a club option.
I think
no,
he's
not a
still
club option.
there.
He's got a player option. I
think he's still there.
I don't know.
Carlos Carrasco, though, is a free agent.
They'll move Carrasco. I think if they're like extra bad, I think they might move Scherzer. I feel like that's more up to like Max, because Max Scherzer feels like one that would storm in the GM's office and specifically tell him to trade him because he's not going to pick up the option. And I feel like they'd move him at that point.
Adam Ottavino and David Robertson are both free agents this offseason.
Definitely.
Gone.
Those guys make sense. Like, if they don't think they can win the division, relievers like that are always going to get traded.
All right. You mentioned Andrew McCutchen. They also have Carlos Santana, the Pirates. Either of those guys.
Let's go yes on Santana, no on McCutchen.
I feel that. Yes, I agree. Rich Hill?
Yes, 100%.
David Bednar?
No.
Good. Padres, I think they should be sellers too.
I agree.
46 and 50. Juan Soto has 1 more year of control. Is he gone?
That's so tough.
I say no. I think they're going to run it back. I think they're same exact vibes as the Mets, where it's like anybody that could be like a huge guy next year that could make them a World Series team. I think they're staying.
I'll agree with that. I feel like it's very exciting to imagine that trade for him.
Yeah.
But I don't think it happens.
All right. But Blake Snell is a free agent this offseason.
100%. He's getting traded.
Blake Snell is gone, and he's going to net a huge deal, I think. I think he may get even more than Giolito because he's going crazy recently.
He's actually been good. Giolito kind of got shelled tonight.
Yeah. Just side note on Blake Snell, over his last 10 starts, he's given up a combined 4 earned runs. He struck out double-digit batters. In half of those starts, he's got a 0.62 ERA across those starts, 91 strikeouts in 58 innings. He's striking out 40% of batters. He's only got 25 walks during that time, 0.62 ERA, last 10 starts. Bonkers. He's gone. and they're going to get a lot for him. And then
100%.
I think the last teams we have are the Cardinals and the Nationals. We sort of talked about everybody on the Cardinals, and then the Nationals. They have got Lane Thomas, who I think still has 2 more years of control.
Yeah, he's got control. No, they don't.
He's going off. Jamer Candelario.
Yes, 100%.
He's a free agent. He is gone.
He's one of the biggest like reclamation projects that's been the last few years. Like he's this year's Brandon Drury.
Yeah, and then I think the rotation is pretty shitty. I don't think anybody wants those guys, but Kyle Finnegan still has 2 more years of control, and he's actually been pretty solid since starting off the year awfully. Kyle Finnegan, he's got 2 more years of control. He's 31. Is he gone?
Kyle Finnegan, no. But before you even say him, Hunter Harvey, definitely. Even though he's got the injury.
I think it's the opposite. Because those guys are the same guys. They have the same amount of control. And I think Harvey's younger. That's a guy that you could see like being a part of the team 2 years from now when they may be starting to be good again. That's a guy that's like not going to be phasing out of being good, while Kyle Finnegan's going to be 33 by the time he's done with arbitration.
I don't think so. I feel like Hunter Harvey could potentially be moved. The only thing that complicates Hunter Harvey is the IL stint right now.
Yes.
What about Carl Edwards Jr.? You think Carl Edwards Jr. gets moved?
Carl Edwards Jr. is also on the IL.
Yeah, but he's a free agent. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody really wants him, but maybe they do. 5.01 xFIP. No thanks. 6 point. Oh my God. 17% strikeout rate. Yeah.
That's
no, nobody wants him.
That's pretty good.
Nobody wants him. We have just run through all the teams, and I think a segment that we thought might take 30 minutes just took an hour and maybe an hour and 15 minutes. So we have once again timed ourselves out of second half predictions. So before we move on, Davis, give me 1 second half prediction for the second half.
1 second half prediction?
Yes.
A
crazy one.
A crazy one's tough.
Like something that has to do with the playoffs. I think that's
Yankees missed the playoffs.
There you go. That's a good one. I think for me, it's gonna be. I'm sticking with my preseason bold prediction. Dodgers miss the playoffs.
I can see it. Where are they at in that division?
They're for first place.
They'll blow it. They'll implode. They're in first place by a game, though. To be fair,
game and a half.
Whatever.
Been updated.
They suck.
They
suck.
do.
They'll blow it.
They do. Well,
Rockies winning the division.
We did a whole draft episode, and now we've done a whole trade deadline episode. Next week, maybe we'll have some guests on. We'll see.
We'll see. Get the Yankees fellers in here. Talk about how stinky their team is.
Well, if they get Shohei, I mean, they're gonna.
If they get Shohei, we're never hearing the end of it. That would be fair.
We just hand over the podcast to Isaiah. He just gets the podcast. Get Shohei Ohtani and a podcast.
Here you go. Congratulations on your new podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it for our trade deadline / second half predictions. We're an hour and 35 in. Are we doing it?
Yeah, we are.
All right. Well, I think it is high time, since we haven't done it in like 3 episodes, is what it feels like. I think we had one last week. Bring in closer.
Let's
bring
go.
in the closer.
All right. Today's closer is Cody Allen, who had an 8-year career from 2012 to 2019, during which he pitched for the Indians and the Angels. He was drafted by the Indians in the 16th round of the 2010 draft, but he did not sign because he wanted to go later. He was drafted by the Indians in the 23rd round of the 2011 draft. No idea what he was going on there. He was nicknamed Pollo, which, Davis, if you could research why his nickname is chicken in Spanish, please tell me. Cody Allen debuted in July of 2012 versus the Baltimore Orioles. He tossed a hitless inning, during which he walked 2 batters and struck out 1. In his debut campaign in 2012, he pitched to a solid 3.72 ERA, and then he emerged as a legit back end of the bullpen arm in 2013, tossing a career-high 70 and a third innings pitched with a 2.43 ERA and 2 saves, and that led to him taking over the closer role from John Axford in 2014. And actually, going back to 2013, he finished 6th in AL Rookie of the Year award voting, as that was his first full season. Had his first 2 saves that year. He was great, and that allowed him to be the first guy up when John Axford started to lose the role in 2014. And across those 2 years, 14 and 15, he produced the best years of his career in back-to-back campaigns. 2014 had his highest Baseball Reference WAR, which goes off ERA, and 2015 had his highest Fangraphs WAR, which is based off FIP. In 2014, he tossed 69 and 2/3 innings with a 2.07 ERA, which was his career best. He also locked down 24 saves. And in 2015, he tossed another 69 and a third innings pitched with a career high 99 strikeouts, a 2.99 ERA, a career high 34 saves, and he led the American League with 58 games finished. Cody Allen was essential to Cleveland's World Series run in 2016. That year, he tossed 68 innings with a 2.51 ERA, a career best 1 WHIP, and 32 more saves. Unfortunately, the Guardians, or the Indians at the time, would lose the World Series to the Cubs that year. And the right-hander had one more good season in 2017. He had a 2.94 ERA and 30 saves that year. In July of that year, he also broke the franchise saves record when he locked down his career 141st save. And then he completely started to fall off in 2018, 4.70 ERA, 1.36 WHIP, 27 saves. And that would be right before he hit free agency. Fortunately, the Angels were looking to spend some money, so we signed a 1-year, $8.5 million deal there, looking to continue his career. And it did not go well. He tossed just 23 innings for the Angels. He had a 6.26 ERA, a 1.91 WHIP with 4 saves. And that would be his last year in the majors at the age of 30. He attempted a couple comebacks, but they didn't come to fruition. So that ended his career with 8.6 Baseball Reference WAR across 463 and 2/3 innings pitched, with 593 strikeouts, a 3.14 ERA, a 1.23 WHIP, and 153 saves, which is tied for 88th on the all-time saves leaderboard with Stu Miller, who closed out a podcast earlier this year for us.
Yeah, shout out to Cody Allen for not being very good in that World Series. I did find the information on the nickname. Jake, would you care to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in 2013, the Indians, since they were doing very bad during batting practice, they had a rooster. So I don't know where they got it. They had a rooster. They let the rooster just walk around in the outfield grass. They already had given the nickname. It was Frank Herrmann that gave Cody Allen the nickname, and it was Chicken Al.
Chicken Al.
Yeah. And then the next year, to try to fix the team's ill fortunes because they were in a bit of a slump, Cody Allen bought a chicken suit and walked around in the outfield during batting practice to make his teammates laugh.
He was the chicken man.
So, after that, they pretty much, it stuck. He was a chicken man, and that's how he got the Pollo nickname,
Nice.
which is, of course, Spanish for chicken. Cody Allen, shout out to that guy. It's a shame his career was not longer because he was really
that
nasty.
peak was great.
Yeah, he was really nasty
just
when he was
disappeared.
in his peak. He just completely fell off. What a
Yep.
shame. But that is it. That is all the time we have in this extra long podcast talking about trades. And you can check back in with us next week, and we actually can hopefully do some second half predictions. I sent out the bat signal trying to get Isaiah and Devin to get on for us. That'd be pretty cool if they can join us. But you won't know until the next podcast. But you have to follow me on Twitter at DVSBird and Jake Crumpler on his Twitter at Jake Crumpler and the Athletes Hub Twitter at Athletes Hub to find out when we're going on, what we're talking about, and who's going to be on with us. You can also check out all of the wonderful content made by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Crumpler, on the various sites, the multitude of websites he writes for, such as.
Yeah, go check me out on pitcherlist.com. I do a couple podcasts there, and I write articles for them, and baseballhq.com, a great pay-to-play website, which is great for all different kinds of stuff. But if you want to just find everything that I do, podcasts, articles, my senior thesis is on the main page. CrumplerBaseball.com will have everything Jake Crumpler.
Yeah, definitely go check out those websites and Pitcher List. Pitcher List does not sponsor our podcast, although they should. That'd be really cool. But that site is awesome, especially if you like fantasy sports. Help you win fantasy baseball leagues. If you want to check out everything else that is on the Athletes Hub, please do so at theathleteshub.org. It is a good website for fan content made about all sorts of sports, not just baseball. It's got other podcasts too, such as Deep Takes from Three, if you're really into basketball. Our contemporaries, Isaiah and Devin, do that with Gary. Those guys are all real cool, and we'll talk basketball once that season starts. If you want to read literally anything else, it's got like professional wrestling. It's got soccer history work from Jonathan Fearby, which is awesome. Like those articles are really cool, super in depth, especially if you love soccer. So, and it's all content made by guys like us, just normal dudes that like sports and want to talk about them. It's pretty easily digestible. They're all relatively short reads. Go check them out. It's really good stuff. Check back with us next week when we're talking about hopefully second half predictions and any trades that have happened between now and next Wednesday. Please give us some trades. It'd be real cool. I hope there's going to be like 5 right after this podcast goes off. Just know it.